Let's look at the American English back vowels. We have oo like in blue shoe. We have like in good book. We have the diphthong o like in no snow. We have the ah like in caught law. And we have ah like in not hot. As I move from the highest oo down to the most open ah, you should be able to feel that change in your jaw. Try it with me. We'll do some words. Blue shoe, good book, no snow, caught law, not hot. Notice that the top vowels here are all rounded vowels, and our ah, not hot is an open, unrounded back vowel. By back vowels, we simply mean that there's space in the back of the mouth and the tongue is descending as we go. So when we say ooh, there's space all across the mouth, but the tongue is high in the back. When we say ah, the tongue is low, the jaw is open, and there's space for the vowel sound to resonate all throughout the mouth. Versus in a front vowel, for example, the ah vowel, the front of my tongue is open, it's open here in the mouth, but the back of the tongue is lifted. So if I'm saying ah, like black cat, I have opening only in the front, the back of the tongue is lifted, versus ah, the whole tongue is down. You can hear that in contrast like hat versus hot. Let's look at each of the back vowels individually. Let's look at the high rounded back vowel oo, as in blue shoe. The symbol for this vowel oo is simply the lowercase letter u, oo, and I use blue shoe as a reminder. Blue shoe is not the best reminder because these are both kind of uncommon spellings for blue and for the oo vowel. The more common spellings are, well, blue is common, it's U plus E. Also common for the oo vowel is OO, like in food or room. EW, a little less common. We use that in new and some other words. And then sometimes we also just use letter O. Not very common, but it's in a few commonly used words. So the first spelling, U plus E, basically means that we have a U, but it's not by itself. So if I had a word, for example, cut, the U by itself just says the stressed schwa, the central vowel. But when we add the E at the end, the pattern for this vowel and many other vowel letters is that a silent E at the end makes the letter say its name. So in this case, U sounds like oo, our oo vowel plus a y sound. So it's not exactly correct. I'm not saying tune in American English. There's no y sound in it. It's just oo, tune. But it's close enough. You can see the difference between cut and cute. That one does have the y vowel. So when we have the two-letter spelling, we're more likely to have the tense oo vowel here, what sometimes people refer to as long U or the long oo sound. So same thing with the two O's together. Most often they'll say oo. They do sometimes say our vowel, and we'll talk about that in the video for So you need to watch out and learn which ones say oo. Most of the time you can count on two O's saying this oo blue shoe vowel. We also have the EW spelling, and after letters T, N, D, Z, S, a few other sounds, we have dropped this y sound. So in American English, it's not new, but rather just new. So EW is saying our oo vowel here in new and do. Same for this do, that follows our UE pattern. And this do is our exception with just the letter O, do. So these three, I do think the do is due to happen on Tuesday, all have the same oo sound. We also have the O spelling in the word to, although this word is often reduced to more of a t sound in fluent speech. When it's by itself or when it's stressed, it has the oo vowel spelled with letter O. So those are the most common spellings for our oo sound. The accent error patterns to watch out for on this one, most of the time, most non-native speakers are using this vowel correctly because this is a vowel sound that's in lots of different languages. But the error patterns that I hear here tend to be somewhat subtle. One is using the y sound where American English will use the oo sound. This doesn't matter too much because in UK English, they haven't dropped the y sound, so they will say new rather than new, or YouTube rather than YouTube. If you're looking to have the American vowel, learning which ones say you and which ones just say oo, and learning about that pattern can be very useful. You can get more help for that in our Sounds of English course and our videos on the channel regarding oo versus you. So that's one error pattern I hear. The other error patterns tend to be that once people are able to do the vowel that's in good book, they start to sometimes become a little too lax in this vowel. So rather than food, they might say it a little more like food. So they're maybe not going all the way to fully the vowel like in good, but there is an in-between place. If we're looking at the back vowels, we have our oo is higher and our is a little lower and more lax. So just watch that you're making a good distinction between the oo in food and the in good. That can also be confused because of this oo spelling. That tends to be a little bit challenging, and hearing that difference between oo and like Luke, the man's name, and look is challenging. You can check out our video specifically for that contrast for a little help there, and also practice materials for that are available in our Sounds of English course. So that's one of the major accent error patterns that I hear. The other is that sometimes people will bring this vowel too far forward in their mouth. And what I mean by that is that when I say oo, the tongue should be high and there should be space in the back as well as in the front. And if my tongue is too lifted in the back and the vowel comes more forward, it's more like an U vowel, which is basically making the E shape with the tongue and rounding the lips. Ü. It's basically like a U umlaut in German, the Ü sound. And so you want to make sure that when you're saying ooh, there's space in the back of the mouth as well. Not Ü, but ooh, ooh. So I do have that lip rounding, but my tongue is further back. So that's a little bit subtle, but looking at the vowel sounds in your native language can be very helpful to help you correct this. I like practicing with two-word phrases when it comes to matching, so looking at the contrast words between the error and the correction, as well as just using multiple words and phrases that have our oo vowel, like blue shoe, new room, food soon, two tunes, etc. So there's another exception to the rule for spelling TWO. Very uncommon. So of course, we can look at the way sounds are typically spelled, and that will help you with 99% of the words. And then there's certain words that you just need to learn to sight read, that we have two, and two, 3 different spellings with the same sounds. That's English for you. Let's look at how to pronounce vowel as in good book. It's a high back rounded lax vowel, and the symbol for it is this uppercase U with the little extra symbols on the top. We typically spell this vowel with just letter U, with 2 O's like in stood or cook, or sometimes with OU like in would and should. This is a less common spelling. Letter U is the most common, but the most problematic is when it's spelled with 2 O's. So the letters OO usually say the oo tense vowel, like in food or room. And that's one of the error patterns that happens for this vowel. So not only does that happen because you probably have an oo vowel in your native language and you may not have the lax version, also because when you see 2 O's, typically you're thinking of this oo vowel, so that's one reason that happens. The spelling with letter U, sometimes the error will be that people will unround it and use more of an vowel, like in such or fun. So to make the vowel, you can feel the oo, take that oo from your native language with very pursed lips and high tongue, oo, and then the tongue relaxes, the jaw opens a little bit, the lips are still rounded but not as tightly pursed, and you get the sound. So I like to use 2-word phrases to practice the sound. Let's do a few like that. Try should cook, push and pull, good book. So you should be able to see my lip shape and start to hear that contrast between the oo that's tense and the that's lax. Sometimes doing a tense word like soon followed by an unstressed word, should, or the man's name Luke that has the oo sound versus look can be helpful. You can get more contrast in my video for contrasting the oo and sounds. More help for developing this vowel and the other vowels of English in our Sounds of English course. Generally with the good book vowel, I would say just working on really hearing and being able to distinguish the sounds can be helpful. Knowing which of the words that are spelled with say the sound. There's only about 10 words you need to learn, and all of those will have the sound. Otherwise, you can count on letters saying oo. And then use words like push or should that help you get the right amount of lip rounding. Those tend to be a little easier for a lot of people. Or finding an anchor word with the vowel where you can hear it and say it correctly, and use that same word to help you with other words you find more difficult. So for example, if you find it's fairly easy to say the vowel in push, then you can use that to help you with other ones. Push the cook, push the book. Or if should, would, or could comes naturally to you because of this spelling, because of that sound, you can use that to help with the ones that don't seem as easy for you. I often use an example of something like put your foot. So these don't look like they should be the same, but since they both contain the vowel, they're good to practice together. Put your foot. So you want to be able to get that lax sound. Let's look at how to pronounce the diphthong O in American English. So it is a diphthong, meaning there's going to be 2 symbols there, and we slide from the O to the position, O. So we close as we say this vowel in English. I use no snow as my anchor words to remind me of spelling and how this sounds. And speaking of spelling, the O vowel has a number of different spellings in English. It can be the double O, so that would be O plus A or O plus E. OA together like in road or coat, or O with a silent E at the end like in note or home. We do have some words with just letter O saying O, like go or no or so. This is less common, a less common spelling. Another somewhat less common spelling is OW, like in snow or no. So the errors that tend to happen on the diphthong O is that in your language, this sound might not be a diphthong, meaning it doesn't slide. You may just have an O, a pure O monophthong vowel. So in your language, O is going to be shorter and it's not going to change position. Whereas in English, O, my tongue raises and my lips get less pursed. O, they close a little bit as my tongue raises in English. So it'll sound, if you use your native language O, it'll sound too short. For example, in English we say no. In your language, you might, if you said it with your accent, you may say no, no, just that simple little O. The problem there, typically you're understood, but it may sound a little bit rude or clipped, and it may also confuse the listener if they don't hear that full O diphthong. Another error that can happen is based on how words are spelled. As you're learning English, we do have letter O saying ah in many words. And so sometimes people will find a word that should have the O and they'll say an ah sound instead. For example, a word like program, we have O, but there's a lot of PRO words like process, for example. which in American English we say with the ah vowel. So there may be some confusion about what you're supposed to say when you see the letter O, and therefore saying the incorrect vowel. So usually the most common error pattern is just making this vowel too short, a monophthong, instead of a sliding diphthong. To practice, just thinking about making it longer tends to help, especially in these words that end with O. I would practice with go, so, no. And for the words that have a consonant at the end, like road or coat, just watch if I'm using the air, it's going to be too short, like road. So just thinking road, road, making sure you have a nice round lips and that you're sliding and closing as you go. Let's look at how to pronounce vowel ah, as in caught, law. It's almost as open as the ah vowel, but it has some lip rounding. So the ah is like an ah with lip rounding. The other tricky thing about this vowel is it has a lot of different ways that it's spelled. So let's break it down. We'll get the sounds, the spelling, the accent error patterns to watch out for, common words it's in, and help you to be able to feel confident saying this vowel ah, as in caught, law. So it's a mid-back rounded vowel, and the symbol for it is this. I often visualize it as AW like we have in law or saw, because that spelling, the AW, doesn't typically say any other sounds. So if that's helpful for you, you can visualize it that way. Unfortunately, this vowel has many, many different spellings in English. So it also has O like in dog or coffee, AU like in taught or caught, OU like in thought, or A like in wash or want. So you can't always find this vowel just based on looking at the letters for it. It's really helpful to have a set of words that you know have the ah vowel and to compare them, to use them together. I call it caught, law, because those are two common words that have the sound and two of the spellings that we use. But having something as an anchor to be able to compare your word to see if you hear that ah sound can be helpful. Looking at what errors can happen, a lot of times errors happen on this vowel because of how it's spelled, and also because you may not have an ah in your native language. There is also something to be aware of, that some regions of the US have gotten rid of this vowel. It has merged together with the ah vowel. And so one recommendation I have is, if you struggle with the ah, work on the ah sound, and you can substitute the ah for the ah in many words and you'll be understood. You'll sound like a native speaker. It's an acceptable pronunciation. What you want to avoid is going too closed or rounded and using something more like an O, either the round O from your native language or the diphthong O that slides in American English. In some words, if you're too open with an ah, it may sound a little bit strange, dog instead of dog. But again, in some regions of the US, that's an acceptable pronunciation. So if you have this error pattern, I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you want to establish the ah vowel, the difference between the ah and the ah, like in hot, is that the ah is completely unrounded and the ah is a little more closed and has lip rounding. I will also sometimes hear people substitute the British aw for this vowel, aw, which is more open and further back in the throat. You don't have this vowel in American English. And then sometimes maybe you might be using something like ow if you see a spelling like this, because the AU in your native language would be like an ah and an oo, ow. And in American English, in this case, this is just a simple ah vowel, not a sliding vowel. So a lot of different errors happen because of how these words are spelled, because of the lack of having this ah sound in your language. I do, as I mentioned, like practicing with two-word phrases, like I caught the dog. I'm going to pause my thought. Let's wash the dog. I thought I had coffee. The law says that we need to be taught the law. For this Vowel awareness is really key. So one thing that I suggest is check out my online course on speechmodification.com, our Sounds of English course, where I'm going to give you a comprehensive list of words that have the ah vowel, and then also just having a way to visualize this vowel so that you know when the spelling is very different. You can think about the word dog, for example, if this is helpful for you, to think of the ah as being AW. You can visualize dog as dog in your mind, or thought as thought, because we do have the word thaw, same vowel as in thought. A way of picturing so that you know what vowel you're trying to use, as well as then shaping that vowel correctly. Let's look at vowel ah as in not hot. This is an open back unrounded vowel. We typically spell vowel ah with letter O in English, which is where some of the accent error patterns come from. People see letter O and they want to do more of a rounded vowel. And in English, letter O, when it's in the stressed syllable and it's the main vowel, typically is going to say this ah as in not hot. I often recommend viewing it or thinking of it as an A or an AH, an ah sound, because in many other languages, vowel ah is spelled with letter A. In English, this is actually a more rare spelling. So we do it for father and pasta, but it's much more typical in English for the ah vowel to be spelled with letter O, like in job, problem, stop, got, lot, etc. So most of the time when you see O, if it doesn't say O as in no snow, it's going to say ah as in not hot. And about 75% of the time, we spell the ah vowel with letter O. So it's the majority of the time. Some of the errors that happen for non-native speakers on this vowel is that you may round the vowel. So in UK English, they have a rounded vowel ah, no, which we don't have in American English. We don't use this vowel. We don't have any rounding. Our rounded vowel is ah, which is a little bit more closed and forward than the British vowel. So watch out for that error if you learned British English, or if you have ah in your native language, you may have a tendency to do that on these words. And then sometimes spelling simply confuses people, and when they see a word with letter O, they think it says the O diphthong, or they may use the O sound that comes from your language rather than the ah sound. So for many people, simply visualizing this as the letter A or the letters AH can help you correctly pronounce this vowel. One thing I recommend is if you have a tendency to round, so perhaps you say stop, to visualize it like stop with the AH, and that can help you make that open, unrounded ah. My tongue is all the way down, my lips have no rounding, and as this is a back vowel, I have space all throughout my mouth, ah, when I'm saying the vowel. You can also use a word that makes more sense to you, where you're using the ah vowel correctly. For example, you might be able to say father with this ah vowel because it's spelled with letter A. Then you can use that to help you with ones that may have an error pattern. For example, my father's job, my father got, my father's not, my father's problem, my father's colleague. Thanks for learning the American English vowels with me. If you want to go more in depth, you can check out our Vowels and our Sounds of English playlist here on the channel. You can also go to our Sounds of English course on speechmodification.com. In that course, we go in depth on each of the vowels. We teach you how to practice and give you materials to do that. It's a great resource to build a strong foundation for all of the sounds of English, to be able to pronounce any word you want confidently and easily in American English. Please check it out on speechmodification.com. It's our Sounds of English course. I look forward to seeing you in our next video.